All right. Just out of curiosity, sir, do you know who owned this, all these items here? It's been left there for a long time, right? Nobody claims that. I see. Okay. It's not a gift for me, I guess, right? I think consecutively I see all these items are there for 3-4 weeks. Nobody collect. Okay. Maybe 1 more minute, they're going to start. Today, how many students do we have? I think 55-ish, 56. We're going to have 3 more gathering together, then we're going to say sayonara to each other, right? This is week 11, next week, week 12, guest lectures plus quiz. Week 13 will be your presentations. I strongly urge that I think for presentations, you guys all dress up. For those of you who have a professional cameras, bring it over, right? We can take pictures together with you, right? Guys, and you can wear shirts. If you have the suits you want to wear with a tie, up to you, right? So, ladies, I guess most of you know how to do makeup, right? So, try to wear that. Of course, I'm not saying that you must, otherwise it penalize it in your score. No, no, no. It's just that if it's a proper presentations, you try to prepare for those. Okay, so today we have 2 chapters to cover. First of all, what is key performance indicators and why do we need so? I just want to open to these lectures with that questions. Without understanding the motivations, later on the lecture contents might be a little bit boring for you. Why do we need to measure the performance? Why? It's just like these modules. If we don't measure performance through quiz and project those continuous assessments, maybe none of you will come to these lectures. The same goes to the work. If you don't assign something to measure the staff performance, the staff can do anything they want. As a company, you set up an entity, a business entity, for a mission. And you want to get all the staff to be aligned with that mission. How do you do it? In the army, it's very straightforward. I tell you to do so, then you have to do so. If not, you're going to be punished by maybe 50 push-ups, 10 kilometers jogging non-stop, until you're mentally aligned. But in the corporate organizations, you're not supposed to go for physical punishment, right? We're all professionals. So how do you control and influence the staff's behaviors? Anybody want to give a try? Let me do a lucky draw approach, otherwise. People, repeat the question now, listen carefully. Otherwise, I'll say, sir, can you repeat the question again? I repeat it now, okay? 西月 Not around? Okay. 瑞瑶 2 in a row. 冰雨 Yes. Can you give a try? I bring this to you. I can repeat the question if you need. I know, same question, I need to say 3 times, right? So, if you are the one who's running a company as a CEO, what are the things you can potentially do so the staff will be aligned with your visions? So, for example, if a Jack Ma, you are Ma Yun, how do you make sure your staff will work towards your goals, agendas. During the interview, make sure they're aligned with you and then leave them alone. Or if they don't do it, ask them to do push-up or joggings. What are the things you can think of?
I think maybe we can check each group's KPI.
Check each group's KPI. So you're saying KPI. Maybe help us to understand. What is KPI? KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators, a type of measurements. So what KPI are you going to set, assuming you're Jack Ma? You're running Alibaba now. What KPI are you going to set to your teams? Come to office punctually, 996?
Maybe how much money do you earn?
How much money do you earn? That's a KPI for the boss, not for them, right? It's okay. You have not started work yet, right? I see. No issue. Do you have any other stuff you want to add in? Do you think who else can answer these questions? How about somebody from the side? Anybody? I think he can. Yeah, I think you can.
Maybe the attendance each day.
It works, for example, right? More people come to here, but not always, right? So for Jack Ma, you think attendance, right? You have to punch the card. Every morning you have to come to office. You don't tell me you're working, but you never show up in office. That's one, okay?
Okay, and maybe every month or every season, some employee should make contract.
Make contract.
Yeah, with enough amount.
Or bring enough revenues,
bring
right?
enough contract, yeah.
Okay.
And in different companies there are different indicators, very specific. Maybe for some technical company, the product they make, the amount of the product they make every month, or the technical version they've updated every week or every month.
Okay.
And,
every month you need to have 2 release, right? If it's a technical software companies.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Don't worry, right? I think I'm not going to force you. Any one last one who want to add in one or two more opinions? Anybody volunteer? If not, I'm going to proceed. Yeah. So first of all, for KPIs refers to key performance indicators. This is a very common performance measurements used across multiple different companies. It's been there many for 20 years, so that's why people say it is a little bit old school. Key performance indicators. Why do we need this? Because we want to align staff's behaviors. And how do you set the KPIs? For example, I'm a lecturer here. I want to set a KPI. All of you must eat 3 meals a day. Good for you, but it's irrelevant. Because my mission is to make sure all of you are being properly equipped with the right set of knowledge, so that when you graduate, either we want to do further research or look for jobs, you have the skill set you need through this course. To set a KPI to have 3 meals a day, we're not going to help that missions. Right? Similarly, for the companies, let's say Jack Ma. What is Jack Ma's missions? Assuming he wants to push Alibaba's, I think GMV, gross merchandise values, is the total stuff he sells, right, to $1 trillion USD. That's the company's goal. Of course, I know that his goal is not like that, right? He wants to set up a company last for 101 years. No, that's not. But assuming is to have a sales revenues more than $1 trillion USD. Then the key performance indicators, he wants his team to agree, must all supporting this goal, the missions. must. Oh, oops, this one not switched on yet. People are saying, but not all the team are sales teams, right? If I'm the one who doing sales, I'm the one who making money for the companies, then it is easy. Yeah, I just need to cut the goals. The sales team 1, maybe 10% of the revenue, sales team 2, 20%, so on and so forth. But there are many other teams within Alibaba groups, supporting teams, raise teams, collection team, logistic teams. All of them does not produce revenues. In fact, they incur costs. That's why sometimes people call them cost centers. How am I going to assign a KPIs? So there are times you need your middle level managers to help you to translate the overall goals by BU business unit specific goals. So that for each of the business units, for example, for your IT team, in order for people to reach $1 trillion sales, the IT team need to build user-friendly products with the response times for people to browse those products and services less than 0.2 seconds. So and they minimally need to have 1 release per month. These are used to support this. You can't let the staff to define this by themselves. Otherwise, it will always be something they're very comfortable, easy to do, not necessarily be able to support this, right? So it got to be, you have the middle management levels to help you to define this, approved by the top management. So once this has been set up, then for each of the IT team members, it's easier for them, right? So for example, in order to have 1 release per month, I need to develop, I don't know, I need to, for my GitHub source code, I need to do 100 PNR, right, on weekly basis, etc. So people, layer by layer, you align all the key performance indicator to submit your grand visions. There are times, in fact, it's very often, when the KPI, the grand visions of the company, is cascaded to different layers of the companies. It got distorted. So people on the grounds are doing something, are not necessarily towards the common goals. Short term, you won't see the difference because the CEO, if it's a huge company, would never be able to know what's going on the ground. Short term, you don't see the impact. After a while, a few years later, you notice, hey, how come my cost to run an IT team is so expensive? How come my product is not as good as the competitors? Right? Then you notice. Then you start to get HR comments, they do diagnosis, etc. So this is what I see. In some big companies, usually they're going to be plagued by this. That's why in a tech firm, sometimes they say, no, I do not want to have a layer approach. I prefer to have a flat hierarchies. You guys know what is flat hierarchies? Any of you have working experience before? I have to let you appreciate the business sense first before I go into details, right? How do we measure a data engineering team's performance? Otherwise, it will be very dry. What do I mean by a flat hierarchies? This is like a flat hierarchies. All of you are students. There's only 1 lecture. But if later on I want to turn this into a non-flat hierarchies, I start to assign a class monitors, right? All of you, before you, for example, you apply for leave, the class monitor need to be aware and agree before come to me. Right? I can also start to assign a role leaders, right? There's a column leaders. All the students here, you guys nominate, I think, a column leaders. Column leader agree first before you go in for apply for absence, then review by class monitors. After that, come to me. That also means every time we need to apply for absence, you got to be minimally 1 week in advance because each of them probably to take 1 to 2 days to get a response. That's called layer approach. So in tech firms, they realize the potential drawback when you do a layer approach. It slows down things, right? The column leader takes 2 days. Class monitor take another 2 days. Come to me take another 2 days, altogether 6 days, just for a simple answer, yes or no, right? In the traditional business, 30, 40 years ago, right, which is fine. Back then, people doesn't even have handphones. We communicate with each other through mails. The mail itself will also take quite a few days. So people, it's okay, it's fine. But nowadays, you can't. Did you guys, I can't recall whether I share with you or not. The number of days I think it takes to reach the first 20 million users. Did I share with you that? The insights? For aeroplanes, it takes about 70 plus years to reach the first 20 million users. TV, about 50 years. Internet, I think about 20 plus years. Twitter's 7 years. There's one game called Pokemons. You only take 30 days. 30 days to reach the first 20 million users. Compared to aeroplanes, how long does it take? You can tell the changes has been accelerated. In the past, it's okay for you to wait for 6, 7 days to make a decisions, right? Now, assuming if you're running a game companies, right? Somebody on the ground says, sir, hey, sir, I noticed there's a competitor's company called Pokemons. The game seems to be interesting. I see many of my friends playing that. I recommend we do a deep study. You report to your group leaders. Group leader spending 3, 4 days. Hey, indeed, it's quite interesting. Let me install. After another day, 5 days, he find, okay, it's a threat to us. Report to group managers. Group manager also take 5 days. You are right. Concur with you. It's a threat to us. But before I report to CEO, I need to align with the group directors. Another 5 days goes, right? So altogether, group leader, group managers, group director, 5 multiplied by 3, 15 days. Now they need to talk to CEO. Unfortunately, CEO is always a very busy person. Most of the time, travel around. So you have to book the time with the secretaries, right? The only available slots, which is 2 weeks later. So you bring all the details to CEO 2 weeks later. CEO say, you are right. Let's do something about it. Can you guys go back to brainstorm and discuss? Give me a plan. 2 months later, a plan come up to say we need to recruit X number of developers and do something similar. But too bad. The Pokemon in 30 days already amassed 20 million users. You are dumb. So tech firm prefer flat hierarchies. Everybody can talk to the boss. You don't have too many layers. And if you need to collaborate with other team members, you through or matrix type of reportings. Right? Of course, you still have mid layers, but the mid layers is very, very lean. It's not like you have the group leaders, group managers, group directors. Probably just have one layer in between. And usually the tech CEO typically are the founders or co-founders. They probably know the tech details. So he can give his view to influence his teams. But after, I think, Series B and Series C, when the team grow in a very big size, it will be difficult for the group CEOs actually to know everything their teams. Company will grow, and in order for him to influence his teams, he needs to insert a few lieutenant generals to assist him to run the teams. And that's the time middle management will come in, right? That's also the time the company grow in size, and the average efficiency potentially may deteriorate a little bit. This is also the issues why in those traditional companies, right? You see the mid layers are so fat. Not physically, I'm seeing that they have disproportionate mid layers to run the company, but you do not see the efficiency going up. Whereas the tech firms, at the start, they're doing better. Of course, right? When they grow much bigger in size, some of the typical management issues that I think plague the traditional firms probably will cause trouble to them as well, right? Go look at those famous tech companies. I do not want to see who they are, right? You know, the company starts with G, but they rebrand themselves, start with A. Yeah, some then call them with F, then later rebrand themselves, begin with M. Yeah, so long you have the big companies, you always have these issues. In the traditional business, they have a belief. Every 3-4 people, you need to have a leader to lead them. I don't know you guys agree with this or not. For those who have the working experiences, in your company setup, do you say this? Every 3-4 staff, you're going to have a leader. I hope you guys can prove them wrong, because for your project settings, you have 9 to 10 people, and you only have one leader. In 2 weeks' time, in 1 week's time, when you guys submit the project reports, I'm going to say, how effective it is that? How does the whole team be coordinated together, and whether you guys can produce the result or not through your reports as well as your presentation. All right, I do not want to spend too much time talk about so-called the context. Let's go back to the slides. I'll go fairly quickly, and because the key concepts really very, very straightforward, right? As I just mentioned here, you want to define some things to influence the staff behavior, so his product, his output is always can be used to align with your grand objective of the companies. You guys know who is this guy? One of a very famous management expert, Peter Drucker, in Chinese called De Luke. The other famous one is one of the chairman of GE, General Electronics. You guys know who is he? No man, I think I don't want to. Okay, bore you with that. Yeah. Also, one more thing. For KPI, key performance indicators, when you set an objective to measures, it must be specific. Okay, I do come across some of the interesting KPI, right? For example, in the banking sectors, we want to help in the bank to make more money, right? Typically, a KPI will be last time I threw some out, I don't know why. Wait. Better. Typically, you put a KPI, year-over-year revenue growth more than 10%. This is specific. We're talking about revenue, not profit, not cost. We're talking about year-over-year comparisons, not month-over-month or century-over-century. So this is very specific. 2, measurables. Is this measurable? The answer is yes. Revenue, you can get this number from your financial reports. 10% is a very easy computable numbers from those informations. A counter examples, which I did say, not very often, is during my early part of the careers. Somebody put a KPI. I try my best to make more money for the companies. What's the problem to put a KPI like this? Try my best to make money for the companies. Sounds big aspirations, right? I give everything I can and could to work for the companies. Is this better than this? No, lah. Why? First of all, it is not specific. What do you mean by best? Best is subjective. A best means there's 7 days a week, then you put 7 days a week. You come to office and work, right? People can measure. It's very specific. If later on, after you try your best, the company revenue only grew by 1%, year-over-year revenue grew by 1%, is it considered acceptable? You can tell your manager, say, boss, I try my best already. This is the 1% is the best. If I don't try, your revenue will decline by 10%. But how the boss know you try your best? He can't tag along you every day. Even if he can tag along you every day, how does he or she know you're making silly decisions, cause problem to the companies? So this could be very subjective, and difficult to measure. How to measure best? Right? So usually KPI will be specific and measurable. In fact, in the industry, there's something called SMART. S called specific, M stand for measurable, A, I think, for actions. I mean, you don't define something that later on there's no action be taken, right? But anyway, I think this is not to prepare you guys, I think, for an interview, right? I just let you guys know. So, what get measures get managed. Think in this class. If there's no quiz, no projects, I think a good portion of us probably will happy-go-lucky, right? Yeah, never mind, I don't study. Anyway, later on I'm going to get a passing grade, right? If we force quiz and make sure all the stuff we discuss here will be tested in quiz, then probably all of us will spend some time so that we get a good score to pass this subject, right? Very simple concept, but somehow, sometimes, right, I think due to various different reasons, will not always be adapted by us. Okay? Good data KPI must be strategy aligns. There's a little we're saying here, right? You don't do something, if you are tech companies, that you don't do something that's not helping your goals. Just because a large language model is cool doesn't mean you will help your companies, right? It may be cool for your personal interest, but it may not help the companies. Objectively measurable. Otherwise, later on you're going to have your debate with your supervisors. You see, you try your best, your boss say no, you didn't, because you seem to be very relaxed. Right? Then how? It's not measurable. There's no common yardstick. Improvements oriented. Okay, this is I have some interesting anecdotes. There are tendency in the industry when people propose a KPO or KPI for themselves, they may want to put something they already achieved. For example, if you already be able to release the software 2 times a month, right? You may have a tendency just to say, my this year key performance indicator is to release the software once a month, or maybe maximally 2 times a month, so that you will not be penalized. You always be able to fulfill your KPI. So typically, KPI will be a stretch, especially in banking and financial sectors. If we want to talk about revenues, last year is 1 billion, this year 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion. It will not be same 1 billion. It's ever growing, right? So there are many people accuse that approach to say, hey, sir, I understand you want to motivate your people. You want to grow the revenue. You want to keep on climb to the next levels, better performance, better productivities. But the whole thing definitely is going to take a tip off. Let me erase this. What's this? No, I can't use this. Last chance. I write letters because it doesn't have enough ink. Okay? If this is the time horizons, this is the revenue, the one we're trying to measure. In the first few years, if you assume there's a 10% increase year over year, maybe it's okay. But is it always fair to assume the company will grow at a steady rate like this? No, it will never. Once you reach a certain stage, you will taper off. Eventually, when people get bored of your product and services, or there's a new replacement product come out, for certain company, this is a very long period. Could be 50 years, 100 years. For certain company, this is just a few years. Depends which industry we're talking about. But in the industry, there's always a tendency. They load you with more and more, not more and more KPIs, more and more stretch goals. To the extent, people fail. Okay, anyway, let's come back. I will not spend the time, I think, to do the rest. Resource planning, you can do a lot of stuff, right? The key thing is that KPI need to be measurable, specific, and you have to be aligned with your grand objective. There are a few different type of KPIs. Sorry, not a few different type of KPIs. In different area of the business, you have different KPI measurements. For financial and revenues, this is actually very easy, right? I can look at total revenue, right? Next year, this year is 1 billion. Next year, 1.2 billion. I can look at the net profit. I look at many, many different ways. For banking sectors, I can look at overall bad loans. In Singapore banking sectors, the average bad loan rate is about 1 to 1.5%. Can't write. This could be a KPI as well. Next year, I want the loan bad rate to be 0.9%. How? I reject those risky customers. And then would that impact my revenue? Could be, because there are certain risks you are not taking. No risk, no return. Hence, you get a good KPI on the bad loan here, but you get a bad KPI outcomes on the revenue side. People just don't want to take the risk because they'll be measured on bad loans. So long they see a little bit risk from those customers, they push them away. And you can tell the KPI start to impact and influence people's behaviors. Right? That's also the reason in some of the great companies, good organizations, KPI is one thing they want to use to shape people's behaviors. They are also use the company's values, company's missions to shape. That is sometimes not so tangible. If you strongly believe a leader, what he say, what he do, strongly influence you. This will only tell you how much bonus you get. The leader's visions, the leader's mottos, the leader's values essentially will shape you how you think. That is intangibly. And that I think sometimes probably is more determined than this. Anyway, there's not a business school class, so I won't go so far, right? Customer centric, operational efficiency, marketing, sales, etc., etc. All of them have different type of way to measure their performance. You know what is NPS? Net Promoting Scores. Retention rate, churn rate, okay. Right. Focus for us today will be this. Data engineering. How do we measure them? Today is week 11. We spent the last 10 lectures to talk about various different data engineering concepts. So if you now be hired to join a famous tech companies running a data engineering teams, how do you want to measure your teams? You're going to measure them on, I'll give you for example, right? You're going to measure them on ETL, assuming that the team does some ETL. Typically for a data engineering team, you have to do that, right? What are the important things you think on ETL people have to do well? E stands for instructions, T, transformations, L for loadings. How do I measure that? How do I make it specific as well as measurables? ETL itself is very specific, right? I'm not measuring storage. I'm not measuring data movements. I'm not measuring other stuff. I measure about E, T, and L. How do I make it measurables? For example, turnaround times. Typically, when you do ETL, it will take about one day to load 20 or 50 megabytes of data. Can I make sure that this year you improve that by 20%? Because technology advanced, you have a better systems, and last time you used the hard disk, right? Now I give you SSD. Or maybe you think a way to make it faster. And ETL sometimes we make mistakes, which potentially cause or introduce noise into our systems. Can we define that the error percentage, the noise inside the data, is less than 0.01%? These are the examples. What else can you guys think of? Just name a few. This may appear in the quiz, huh? No, you will not. What else you can think of? Huh? Data quality. How do we measure that? Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay. So there are we. So DQ. Tanya DQ. Data qualities. One more? One more comments from you guys? What else? Stress test. Whether there's an alternative. Okay, understood. Yeah, right. Yeah. For example, in the e-commerce, I think setup, right? Or maybe banking setup as well. If suddenly there's a surge of the demands. In 1 second, there comes, I think, 200,000 transactions. Can you make sure your system can still be able to withstand that for 1 hour? That can also be a KPI, especially for e-commerce companies. In banking context, of course, you measure slightly different things. You measure consistencies and availabilities. Can you make sure throughout the year, 365 days, your system is up 90.99% of the time? You can have the outage, but the outage should be less than 0.001%. And each time there's outage, it cannot be more than 4 hours. This is the KPI the central banks, the monetary authorities, assign to each of the commercial banks. That's their KPIs. You can't breach that. If you breach, I give you warnings. Second breach, you have to do something. Third breach, fine on you, $100 million. Or maybe the key executive, no bonus. Okay, come to data engineering. I only highlight the key concepts. I know that I think you guys probably were not going to use this very, very soon. But for those of you who need to join company, work along these areas. These are the one you're going to fight him for. This is how people recognize your values, through this lens. I'll skip this. Just now already seen this, right? This one, don't worry. Let's go into. These are some of the key things people use for the data ops. Mean time to failure. Sounds like a quality engineering stuff. What does mean time to failure means? How long does it take for the system to break down? If your ATM machines, if the mean time to failure 6 hours, then every 24 hours you're going to see 4 failures. No good. If it's ETL you build to move the data from one system to the other systems, from OLTP to OLAP, your mean time to failures is 5 days. That means every weekend some glitch will happen. Your engineer need to go there to fix this. No good. Specific and measurable, right? Mean time to detect. This is another thing. Sometimes the system breakdown, right? If nobody can use them, then fine. Right away, the user will start to complain. You will notice that. But there are also times the certain feature is very subtle. You may not notice. Well, the system may still look functioning. When you press the buttons, when you start to pull information, the information will still be pulled, but much slower than before. You didn't notice you're seeing the programs running, the whole system, the data is moved from one place to the other place. You didn't notice. It is very slow. It's get congested due to various different reasons. Or maybe one pipe breaks. And for you, while you notice this, it probably 2 days later, right? So how long does it take for you to detect these issues? If it's difficult for you guys to understand, in Singapore, you go 999. What does 999 do? Something bad happened, you call the police officer. How long does it take for them to come to the site? Any of you called 999 before? None? None of you. Any of you called police before to look for help? I mean, it doesn't have to be Singapore, overseas also can. None? You call? Which? How long does it take for them to come to support you? They just call, oh. Okay, I see. And for your information, I used to be a police officer for 3 years. Typically, when I take the call and reach there, usually less than 10 minutes. Because most of the time I'm in a car, right? People let drive, go there, right? Anyway, mean time to detect. Mean time to identify. When the system is down, you know some things are wrong. Doesn't mean you know what is wrong, right? It take a while for you to do discoveries and troubleshoot. Mean time to verify. You suspect maybe the database is corrupted, but you do not know. It may take additional evidence for you to verify. So anyway, there are many, many mean time things actually to do this, right? So typically these are the key things that people use to measure a data ops teams. Ops team, data quality. I think this is the one I think just furnished by Tanya on a few points. Completeness, validity, precision, accuracy, consistency, etc. The whole list can carry on. The cost can be elements as well, right? In order for you to keep certain level of data quality, how much does it cost? Data pipes, KPI. We'll talk about different data elements. Data quality, you have 6. again 7. Data pipes. Throughput is one of those. If other people can move 20 terabyte data, I think, from one place to the other place in 1 hour, how much time do you need to move that 20 terabyte of the data? This may sound to be trivial. Sir, how difficult it is to move the data from one place to the other place? You have multiple different ways to do so, especially when you need to perform complicated data operations, right? The step you choose may potentially impact the speed of the entire operations. For examples, I can give you, right? When you need to run a queries, for example, the database has about 1 billion records. When you need to run a queries to filter out all these customers have a Singapore address. And you want to understand what is the average income of those Singapore customers. There are more than one way for you to do the queries. The smarter way probably is to do a proning based on address first. You narrow down to those Singapore customers, maybe out of 1 billion rows, inside there are only 500,000 rows. And from there you do your mathematical aggregations. The other way that you do the mathematical aggregations first for all different type of country nationalities, then later on you filter out the Singapore ones. You still get the same results, but the amount of efforts and turnaround time will be different. I hope you guys get what I mean, huh? Okay? Latencies. How long does it take for you to see the informations? You may see the same data, but one you have to wait for 5 seconds, the other one you need to wait for 0.1 seconds. The experiences will be different. This is the next one, availability. This is very common, right? How many % of the time your system is up and running? You don't want, for example, your phones, right? If your phone only works for 80% of the times, I'm pretty sure you're going to buy a new one. Your phone probably works 99.99% of the times. And the rare scenarios, if it doesn't work, means that you put on the touch screens, there's no response. When you're trying to play the videos, it's very slow. Typically, you will do a restart, and usually the problem will disappear. Failure rate. How many % of the times the job will not be executed properly? And the list can go on. I just list a few common ones. Okay? Usage. Data usage matrices. Why do we need to track the data usage? As a data engineer, once I've done all my data storage, data pipes, and data transformations, and put them in OLAPs, that is data storage again, my job is done. Why do I need to bother I may want to bother who will use that, but why do I need to bother how many people will be using that? I did a great job to store all the data properly in a data mart. Why do I need to care about the adoptions? Anybody? Again, the business element kicks in. If you do not care how many people come to use the data asset you build, the data mart, the OLAP systems, and after 1 or 2 years' times, when the bank seniors management start to evaluate, we spend $5 million to build our OLAP systems. There are only 2 users has been using them to build 1 report. Does that mean that 1 report will cost $5 million for the management? And how critical is that report? If the report is not that critical, or maybe it is important, but does not worth for $5 million, I'm going to scrap that project. Kill the data mart. No need. And for a data engineer who spent 2 years to build that things, either your project is dead or you're probably out of jobs. I'm not saying that as a data engineer. This is your job. This is only you are accountable for this, right? There are your managers, the project sponsors also need to be accountable. They probably should also be very conscious to persuade people to use this. The company spend $5 million. You need to find the ROI. The ROI is to trying to make many people to use this new product, which is supposed to be better, more efficient, and better facilities and tools allow people to enhance the productivities. Hence, you need to measure that. And typically, that is also one way to measure the values of that data engineering projects. How many people use that? How am I going to enhance the productivities? Right? And the soft part is that how many people like that? How many people indicate by using this system they're happier than before and they have a better productivity, etc. These typically will be measures. And this typically might be paid attention by the senior bosses because they may not know the details. Move the data in 1 second compared to 0.1 seconds, what's the big deals, right? They may not know. But whether there are people using the systems and whether people see good things about the system or not, it's very easy for them to comprehend. And some of the decision will be made based on this feedback they get us. So, I know there's a text class, but also try and pay attention to the data usage matrices as well. Or at least persuade your boss, or if you're senior enough later on that you are the boss, make sure that you pay attention to this. This literally is the ROI for any tech investments. I think for this one, I will not go further because the concept is rather straightforward. You need to measure, and the measurement need to be specific, measurable, actionables, and also the objective need to be linked back to your company growing goals, right? And for the rest, you guys probably can spend some time to read through. It's all along the same lines. I want to introduce a few new concepts. KPI just now, I think I already shared with you. Do you know another measurement system called OKR? Nope. How many of you have working experience? Do you mind to raise your hands? Sumita? Only 2 or 3? The rest? Okay. Very few of you, right? Okay, then I don't go into this place, right? Otherwise, I think I'll lost you guys. Any other question you want to ask about this? No? Okay. Then we'll switch into next chapters. Okay. I'll say later on that I think if we still have about 20 to 25 minutes, I'm probably going to do a quick overview of the key items we cover in the entire class to help you guys to prepare for your quiz now. Data engineering with generative AI and agentic AIs. How many of you have used generative AI? For those of you who have not used generative AIs, raise your hands. For those of you who have tried generative AI, raise your hands, please. The rest all never. I assume all are. Right, you have, right. ChatGPTs, I'm pretty sure, or equivalent, you have been using that. What's the difference between generative AI and agentic AI? Anyone? Lucky draw again, huh? Just simple questions, right?会意为 Ivan. Maybe this is the unlucky sections. I will move a bit. Junwen. 3 in a row. Sen Yang. Hey, this is all recorded. I won't forget. Yeah. 波纹，许波纹，赵俊 ，6 in a row， 建议。Okay. Are you using generative AI to help you to answer this question? Which is fine, right? You should, yeah.
Well, generative AI acts proactively
Mm.
as an autonomous agent, planning and executing multi-step workflows
Okay.
to achieve goals with minimal oversight.
Okay. Do you guys understand this? No, I understand what you're trying to say, and I agree. But it's a little bit too technical, right? Let me explain that in layman terms. My view, there's no standard answers. Generative AI is Q&A. You ask a question, they give you answers. Agentic AI, you ask a question, give you answers, sometimes will do it for you. For example, generative AI. You tell me how to write a tell me in Microsoft Excel, how do I write a summation formula for across 10 rows? Generative AI will tell you, you do this, right? Then later on, based on the instructions, you go plug in the formula in your Excel files. Agentic AI, they probably will tell you something. Whether they show the insights to you or not, they will do it for you. It's the action part. That's why now I think in the industry, many people are very scared. Right? 2 years ago, when ChatGPT became very, very popular, people say, wow, now there's a Wikipedias, a live Wikipedias, like a teacher standing next to you, helping to answer the questions. All of us become smarter. But people are not worried about the job. They just feel they will become smarter. Instead of going around Wikipedia to understand, now the answer is tailor-made to you. With the agentic AI, especially last 2 months, the open claw. I need a pen GPT lah, huh? Multiple actions can be triggers, not just tell you what to do, can do it on your behalf as well. And the whole thing becomes so smart. They can decompose the task into multiple subtasks, even though you never tell them how to do it. Right? For example, help me to build a website. I want to show students quiz results tomorrow. I never tell him how to build a website. I also never tell him which class of the students I want to show the results. I never tell in what format. I also never tell where to put the information. Based on the past engaging histories, that bot is smart enough to decompose that task based on chart. Okay, it must be an NUS class, and how many classes are there? And based on the comments, I want to propose is the 5214 class. And based on 5214 is NUS modules, I need to go to their NUS databases to retrieve the information. You need authentication. The user never give it to me, so I'm going to ask for users' input for this. While I'm waiting for users' input, I'm going to build in parallel a website. And based on the user's preference, it's all for students, right? Maybe simplicity is better. They can give this all little thoughts and start to build something. While I'm asleep in the bed in the night times, the other day morning when I wake up, I see, not bad. The website been put up, but missing the students' data because I never give authentication. I do authentications. Right away, data pool, move into the website, or come out. That is not just a productivity enhancement. That is more like a replacement. And it can do so many things. So in the industry, People now they're talking, of course, I mean, nobody will see that, people will be out of jobs. At least they will not make it very, very obvious. But we all feel certain rudimentary or preliminary type of work will be replaced. And in fact, as somebody who works in this field, you're consciously to upgrade yourself, pick up the new skill set, so that before, you become irrelevant, you'll be part of the transformation journey, shape the company in the way it becomes more productive. On this, different governments have different strategies. Very different strategies. I can see China, United States, and Singapore are doing this very, very differently. For Singapore, a few months ago, again, there's no propagandas, right? I just share with you what has been done. The government set up a national AI committees, which led by the ministers, prime minister. They treat AI, adoption of AI, as a national agendas. If we don't do it properly, do it well, the overall productivities will fall behind from those nations who did it well. And Singapore is always competitive, right? And the reason why those overseas companies and the fund would love come to Singapore is because there's good productivities, good efficiencies. Right, so you don't want to fall behind on adoption of this and become a national agenda. The Prime Minister is leading that. And all the residents essentially will give some money to go attend various different courses, they call skill futures, to upgrade themselves so that they will not be left behind. US and China are using a slightly different strategies. Again, as my views are, it doesn't mean that's the correct views. I'm just sharing with you my observations. You guys also take that with a pinch of salt as well, right? Yeah, it will be not tested, obviously, right? My view is that US focus very much, I think, on setting the standards. Spend a lot of efforts to build the frontier models, the fundamental large language models. Not say that they don't focus on applications, but they focus to lead in the world with the fundamental breakthroughs. GPT came from them, Gemini come from them, Anthropic come from them as well, right? Meta also attempt actually to build their own so-called large language models, and in fact they already have. Llama series, open source one. That's one strategy. China focus a lot, I think, on applications adoptions. You look at, I think, the various different companies. Even the government agency, when I read the news, since more than half a year ago, I'll be encouraged, I don't want to use the word push, to use generative AI to make their work a lot more efficient than before. I think they're probably using DeepSeek, right, for national security reasons. So 3 different countries use different approach to adopt the technologies. And the accelerations, the changes they bring by this technology probably will be further accelerated in the next maybe 1 to 2 years' times, right? I can't make a speculations when are we going to reach AGI. You guys know what is AGI? This is clearly not AGI. AGI, artificial general intelligence, means the machines is as smart as us, can do many, many stuff which we do. As of now, there's still people perceive, right? ChatGPT equivalent is only good in certain areas, and maybe math and science. I can't understand many things. For example, you may not be able to appreciate the songs. When you upload a movie or video to them, it may not be able to appreciate the things the same way as we're humans. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have real intelligence. People see, some of them, especially I think Professor Yang Li Kun say, the large language model as of now It doesn't really have the intelligence. At the best, it's just a probabilistic models. Based on probabilities produced in the next word. It doesn't really understand the word. Right? I mean, I'm not a deep researcher in this area, so I can't comment. The other one is artificial super intelligence. It's much smarter than humans. And in fact, in certain areas, I feel the GPT or the equivalent is no more than me in certain areas. Of course, they are making sometimes make silly recommendation as well, right? Could be regarded as hallucinations. The other branch of that, the large language model approach, there are people saying that I think is not the greatest one, right? The other branch of that, people see that, the researchers saying that I need to train the model to really understand the word, not through our probabilistic models. So their model called word models. This comes from Professor Yang Li Kun's. Yeah. I'm not going to details. I don't claim that I understand every single details there, simply because I don't have the time. Go deep in this, JPAs. Yeah. Yesterday night, right before I fall asleep, they released a new models in this with 15 million parameters. And the claims is super smart. Haven't got a chance to read in details. Released by Professor Yang Li Kun's. It's a model with 15 million parameters. It's a big model or small models? Anyone? Huh? Very small, right? Because now for those big commercial models, they easily talk about 40 billions, 100 billion parameters. Compared to that, this is not even a peanut. It's a sesame seed. And imagine in futures, when those large language models, not large language, when those smart models can run on your watch to make a decision on your behalf. Imagine all those data points, right? It can be collected by sensors. They can tell you, hey sir, you're not supposed to eat so much because your BMI index, your blood pressures, your this and that. And because you can have a camera as well, right? I'll recommend that these are 3 different stores. You go to that store, you eat this, right? Keep on nagging on you. Like our parents, right? You're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do this. And in future, the interview probably will become very different, assuming that all those smart devices are around use. And in fact, nowadays, in Silicon Valleys, for those remote interviews, people require, right, you show your screens. Otherwise, while you're talking across the cameras, right, all the voice will be captured inside the large language model. In real time, the large language model will role play the other interviewee and tell you how to answer the question. You'll do a good job, right? Okay. Enough opening, huh? You guys have any questions about the usage of the models? I hope by now I think you guys don't have any questions at all, huh? We continue maybe for another 5 minutes, then you guys take a quick break, then we come back again. Data engineering part. The last 10 lectures were all talk about various different data architectures, data storage, data ETL, the movement of the data, and the transformation of the data, suitable for traditional data needs. And given the fact we know in the next few years, generative AI and agentic AI will have a much higher adoptions than a few years ago, we got to understand what data do they need to consume, and in what way we need to prepare the data for their consumptions. How are we going to set up a proper architectures so that the large language model can consume the data in the right way, produce the output in the right way for us to consume. So in the next maybe 1 hour or maybe 1.5 hours, we're going to spend some time to discuss that in details. You will not be tested, but I think it will be good to know. I also, I think, share with you guys some runnable code. I think a couple of days ago I tried, right? One is the RAGs. It's nothing but generative AI applications, right? retrievable augmentations generations that I write the code, of course, with the large language model, right, to do RAG applications. The other one is the agentic approach, means that another code I think I write with the assistance I think of the large language model is to extract the financial information of the crude oil, monitor them in near real times. If there's any alert, figure out who are the clients by using their own logic. I don't even code the logic, will be impacted by those by the fluctuation of the crude oil price, and help me to prepare an email to notify the salesperson looking after them. I get this done in less than 3 hours with a reasonably okay UI. Not very smart, right? I doesn't have the time to do that. So I zip both projects and give you upload that I think into our working canvas file folders, right? And of course, all the dependency of the libraries I put it there as well, right? So if you guys have some interest, go there, have a try, right? It's runnable in my platforms already. I use VS Code. All right, I think 2:13, maybe you guys have about, I think, reconvene, 8:30. Can I'll spend the next 1 hour, probably talk about this. And if 30 minutes, if time permits, I'll spend 30 minutes, I think, to do a quick reviews with you guys to prepare for the quiz. Okay. Yes.
So we all of our data is like stock prices or like factor data. So do we like are we like we have to like do the like research star system or is just a choice?
No, up to you. Up to you. Up to you. It can't be everything Excel.
Oh yeah.
Up to you, right? If you feel your applications can have the data to be built in the star schema because it's easier for you to do slice and dice, of course, you can consider that.
But if like no need to.
Then you don't have to.
Yeah. Understand.
Can, All right, let's resume the class. It took a short while for me to figure out the hardware. Okay, so let's first of all, I think, to highlight a few key differences between the traditional data engineering systems and, in my view, what are the new data engineering needs if you want to deal with generative AIs as well as agentic AIs. In the past, who are the ones consumed for those data? Typically, will be developers, will be analysts, will be stakeholders. All of them are humans, right? And nowadays, I think we don't even need to talk about futures. We're dealing with large language models, produce generative or agentic AI applications. Very likely, the information will be consumed instead by human beings. It is done by agents. How many of you, I think, besides so-called the ChatGPT, besides trying the things there, for example, trying to ask a question, get a response, how many of you have built any applications on top of the large language models? How many of you have called GPT API-K to build Tanya and Sumita? Any others? None? Anybody of you have uploaded the PDF documents or PowerPoint slides into the GPT to get a summary? Any one of you? Some of you, right? Raise your hand, please. You have done that? Okay. A few of you. Have you ever to ask the GPT to help you to retrieve an answer from lecture notes if you have 10, 20 lecture notes? Any one of you? No, then later on we're going to spend some time. If you want to do that, how do we potentially do it? In fact, one of the code I share, you can easily extend that. It's called RAGs. Never mind. Okay, let's follow the slides. Yeah. So traditionally, the data engineering systems, the output. Wow, did I see something so grand? You need to give them music. Yeah. You guys still recall, I think we talked about 6 different steps for data engineering. The last step is called data consumptions, right? And for consumption, typically we talk about reports. Reports can be a static report and can also be a dashboard. That's a little bit more interactive, allows you to do slice and dice. Or it could be also as the insights produced through a machine learning model. A clustering algorithm tell you who are the customers are grouped together, allow you to reduce the problem dimensions. A classification engine can tell you who are the clients potentially are bad acts that may be criminal. These all can be regarded as insights. Sometimes people put these insights in orderly manners, then they call reports. But for generative AI or agentic AI, do you consume the information in this way or not? You can still, for example, right, after asking questions, right, the engine give you answers. You may still want to say, help me to put in the Word documents or PPT. You can. But you typically don't do that, right? It's always the answer, come back with contextual informations. And if it's agentic AI, it is, in fact, it's not even information for you to consume. It is an action being triggered by the underlying large language models. You don't even need to consume information. The reason why you want to consume information is because you want to make a decisions. You want to make a smart decisions, trigger a nice action to achieve what you want. But if now the decision is automated, the action will be triggered on your behalf, why do you need to consume this information? Why do I need to know who are the potential suspects of money laundering among my customers base? In the past, I built a machine learning algorithm. I'll get a report. These are the suspicious transactions. And these are the 5 customers associated with these transactions. Ask me to review. But if not, agentic AI can help me to do that, and in the same times, can help me to trigger an email to the salespersons who look after these clients to tell all these insights. All right, if one step further, to trigger call with customers, ask customer to elaborate why you have so many suspicious transactions. Then do I need to know for every single instance who are the clients? Of course, at the onset, you still have to know. You want to make sure the agentic AI is smart enough to do the right things, right? But after the system stabilizes, do you still care whether they give you a report or not? You just want the agents to do the right thing for you. So the way to consume the information will be different as well. Does that mean that a few years later, the stuff we're learning here will become less important? Dashboard will not be useful, report will not be critical, DETLELT will not be critical. No. In the data consumption end, maybe you probably have less chance to use dashboard because in future, it is agent need the information, right? Agent does not need to have a fancy, colorful designs. Later, I think I will share with you some of my views, right? How does that, I think, shape the marketing industries? But the way to organize the data, the way to put the storage into space, the way to do transformation are still very useful. Why? Because the agent, the large language model, assuming 2 years later it's still the large language model, right? Need to consume clean data, need to consume data of good quality. Otherwise, garbage in, rubbish out, or garbage out. So the stuff we learn here still be very relevant. It's just that the way we feed the data into the large language model might be slightly different from the way we fit into our OLAP data mart. Because OLAP data mart or database is optimized for people to build dashboard and reports, which is intended for human consumptions. But now, if human is no longer in a loop or in the special initiative applications, human is no longer in a loop, then perhaps we need to store the information in a slightly different ways. If we love to eat vegetarians, I can't feed you the meat. If generative AI applications love to consume the data in a certain way, I can't fit in maybe the traditional SQL databases. So, what database, what data format does the generative AI application want to consume? Let's discuss a simple application of generative AI. It's called RAG. Retrieval augmented generations. I'll use a layman. You guys know what is VLOOKUP? For those of you who know Excel, right? My layman way to explain this. VLOOKUP essentially is where you find the information, right? So literally, retrieval stands for you use a smarter way to, based on the questions you put there, search for the right answers in underlying databases. do a match, then you push the match relevant information into your large language model, in this case, of course, in a layman way, CGPT, ask them to organize this thought into a proper answers. As simple as that. Before I go into details, I do want to share with you a story, not a stories, on my own observations. I do not know whether I shared that before with you guys or not. How information shape humans' decisions. Give me maybe 2 to 3 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes. I think this is something interesting. Yeah, to wake you guys up as well. Besides, I use the quiz keep on scare you guys, right? Yeah. For those of you, if they went to, I don't know, hawker centers. Anyway, I guess some of you probably went to hawker center, right? There's one famous one, I think, in Chinatown areas, right? Newton Hawker Center as well, quite famous one. In the past, it's famous for a wrong reason. People selling a prawn for $38 and being quoted in the newspapers. Yeah, I guess those local, you probably ring a bell, right? You notice certain store, the rentals probably is more. You probably don't notice, but look at the food price, you can tell, right? Certain store, the food price is higher than the rest. The reason is probably because they pay higher rentals. In the shopping mall, or when you guys rent a house, trying to rent a house, right? You notice certain locations, maybe Clementi areas, is more expensive than Zhangyi areas, than Choa areas. The location matters. When you want to do marketing, when you want to sell things, you always want to choose a locations or a junctions there are traffic, right? Clementi areas, what is the traffic? You guys, the students who have the accommodation needs, right? So the things here, I think, will be more expensive, right? You find the prime locations, you sell the things because there's a higher traffic. And that's also the reasons I think McDonald's or QF5214, they're very smart. They know where to find a good location so that the business could be profitable. And usually McDonald's start first, then QF5214 come next. They become neighbor of each other's, right? Very near to each other's. It seems to always the case. But the invention of the internet changed that. Internet, you open an e-commerce, you set up an e-shop in an e-commerce website. There is no location difference. Whether it's in Clementi's, whether it's in Choa Chu Kang, whether it's in Zhangyi, people don't feel there's a difference so long your e-shop is online. So internet make the information flow fastest. They change the competitions from location-based to traffic-based. And in order for you to attract the traffic to your e-shops, what do? Again? Advertisements. Advertisements. You bring the traffic. So you can see the difference, right? I'll come to later to see how does generative AI and large language and agentic AI will shift this thing a little bit. You bring advertisements in, right? This is how people doing marketing in the year of, I think, 2010s. You bring in the traffic. But literally, for those people who browse the e-commerce website, buy the things, you're still the one who actively search for those products, right? Be physically, you're going around to look for these items, or be you're online, digitally browse for those catalog. you are still the one actively looking for those products. Human look for the products. Post 2010s, for those of you who are active in TikTok or Red Note or those live streaming platforms, right? If you spend enough time, the platform know your habits. They start to push the things to you, the videos to you. And some of those videos are advertisement as well. The product you potentially may like. So that's the time. You see, that's the push algorithms. That's the time. The product still look for people. You do not actively go to those platforms to browse the product you need. No, you're not looking for them because it's not that easy to browse. The product, based on the recommendation algorithms, being pushed to you. That's the change of the paradigms. In the past, it's all you look for a product. Now, product based on algorithm look for you. And sometimes, in order for you to entice you to click, right? They have to optimize the UI. They have maybe the young, you don't know, right? The young people showing a very nice, elegant gym sessions to let you spend some time on there, right? Seeking your attentions, getting your bandwidth to optimize, because either as you look for the product or the product look for you, you are still the one, the humans interacting with the product. And we're all humans. They want to set your time spans. We only have 24 hours. Then they make sure the whole thing is more addictive. So you spend more time. They have a higher chance to cross-sell the product and services to you. Imagine now, with the proliferation of the agentic AIs, you got the agentic AI to help you to buy the things. You got the agentic AI help you to purchase your holiday hotel bookings, get your air tickets, buy the groceries, determine which clothes to buy, determine which shoe to wear. The attention-seeking algorithms, the nice gym sessions, the pretty clothes, the beach videos, do you think it's still going to work for them? Agents have unlimited attention spans. Agents will not be enticed by certain colors. Agents will be very much driven on the goal you set it for them. I want to buy groceries. The metadata behind each of the product essentially will be pushed to those agents. The colorful pictures to agents probably will make less sense. It may be appealing very to human eye, but for agent, this will be less important. I hope you guys, after this, I think, Sharon, you'll be able to see the shift of how people and products are interacting with each other. This may also potentially change a few different industries. If as of now, those platforms, by selling or by competing with your attentions to make a profit, and if we switch into agent eras, agents are the one who helping us to making decisions, buying things, this platform's traffic and business model probably is going to collapse very soon. Again, this is not the predictions. This is one of the possible routes the world is going to progressing. It shape our economies. All right, come back to here. What data do we fit into those large language model applications? I want to describe using RAG applications. Give you scenarios. You have 20, maybe 50 lecture notes. Right, from various different subjects, assuming each subject has about 10 to 12 lecture notes, you subscribe to 5 different modules, 50 lecture notes. you want to find an answer to a questions. How many different type of data schemas are there potentially useful for OLAP? And you do not want to get generic answers from Wikipedia, from Google, or from large language model. You want the answer to be extracted from the lecture notes, because that's the ground truth. That's the one you're more familiar with. You don't want to start a different answer. You have to retrigger your thought process again. How do I make sure I will be able to find this information quickly? One way in the past is that let me open all 50 notes, 50 PDF documents, check one by one. Roughly, I know this has come from data engineering course, not from a stochastic optimization course, not from a market evaluation course, right? So I know that I will be able to retrieve certain information from 10, 12 notes from data engineering, right? Use your brain, then check one by one. What if I want to use advanced search methods through large language models or through a database approach? If this is a 50 students with ID, identification numbers, for me to search who are the students let's say, who are the students with top score? This can be included in the traditional SQL databases, right? If I need to check the students with the top score, very easy. They will sort in SQL query. But if I want to know what are the possible data schema used in the OLAP systems, how am I going to store the information into some sort of a database or / data storage space? Allow me to do a retrieval, and the retrieval will be question specific. The question will be, what are the possible data schema for OLAP systems? Can I store the data in SQL databases? No, because they are all text, and the text also various shape and forms. In fact, they're not just text, they're documents. How am I going to do that? Even people will say that, sir, there's a one way lah, right? I break the documents by pages or by sentence. Each of the row store one sentence. Then I structure this data already from documents into a sentence. Yes, it could be. But then, when you do the query, how are you supposed to do the queries? The query is that what are the possible data schemas for all OLAP systems? How am I supposed to do queries? If it's SQL queries, can I select all the rows with the letters or with some sort of answers? It's not easy because you do not know what's the answer, right? You only know the questions. You do not know what is the answers. So in this case, how do we do it? We need to introduce the concept of embedding. We should store the information in some sort of databases, but we can't store the information as it is, as text. We need to transform the text. We need to represent the text with some sort of vectors. And these vectors will carry some semantic meaning. What do I mean by semantic meanings? This is best described by our examples. king and queens. By look at these English words, using a Python or use a statistical methods, can you tell what are the relationship of the two? What are the relationships? You guys can do a TF-IDF. You know what's TF-IDF? How about the students in the back? You know what's TF-IDF? Okay, then I'll use the layman terms. I don't say this. Erase this, huh? For example, I do a simple correlation analysis. I do a similarity check between the two. Do they have similar number of letters? Does the letter follow the same sequence? No. They are very dissimilar from each other. So, computer programs does not be able to tell the relationship from the two words if we just interpret the words on surface by look at the letters, by look at the sequence of the letters. You will not be able to tell anything. But we know from all humans' understandings, there are couples. The both are majesties. These are the semantic meanings carried in these words. If I continue to process these words in the way as I process them as a computer strings, a sequence of characters, that semantic meanings will be lost. I don't want this information to be lost. I want it to be preserved properly because later on, when I ask these questions, I want this information to be linked together so that a similar answer, for example, I say, what is the relationship, so what is the closest person of a Kim's, right? I want the queen to be one of the choices. It may not be the most correct answers or related answers, but I want this to be one of the choices. So, I need to transform when I store the Kim's information and Queen's information into the systems. I cannot store as it is. I need to store them in a slightly different ways by using vectors. Kim maybe is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? For example, there are 4 dimensions. Queen maybe is 1, 2, 3, 3, also 4 dimensions. Now, if I do a vector computations, this vector computation you can use correlations. Cosine similarity is only for binary, like 0, 1, right? So if I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4, cosine, you can still use, but probably I think it's not as effective as other methods. For example, I'm doing a correlation, right? I notice these two are highly correlated in the vector space. They're very close to each other. I'm literally telling the computers to say that these two vectors are very close to each other. The words they represent are also very close to each other. This is called embedding. Embedding is not a new thing just being invented recently because of the large language models, huh? No. More than 10, 15 years ago, when people doing NLP, natural language processing, embedding already be there. But back then we were using not so smart embeddings, called skip diagrams, word to vectors, right? There are a few more, but that's about it, right? So in large language models, the dimension of the vector they're using to represent the informations is not just 4 dimensional. It could be easily a few hundred, even thousands of dimensions for them to capture the semantic meaning of those words, of those sentences. So after you convert all those texts into vectors, and come to store the vector inside the databases, it's easy, right? Right? It's not just text, right? and put that into databases. And this database is called what? Vector databases. The one I think I also briefly mentioned in the last class. Even by Facebook. Of course, you have more than one. In fact, in the notes, I think I put a few, right? It's the place how you store those vectors. After you store the vectors, how am I going to do a queries? And how the query is supposed to know that's the answers? How am I going to do a queries? For example, right? All those 50 lecture notes, I break them into small pieces, right? All of them are text. I put a picture aside first, right? Just a text. I use the vectors to represent all those texts. Store that into a FAISS vector databases. Now I need to do a query, right? Because I have a questions. My question is that, what are the possible data schemas in OLAP? Huh? Start what? How am I going to do a query? For you to do a queries, first of all, for the question you have, you also need to convert them into vectors. The text doesn't interact with the vectors, right? Because all the context, the 50 lecture notes, you already put inside the databases as vectors. And your questions, as of now, are still in text. You may also want to use the similar embedding methods to convert the questions into vectors. And the next thing you need to do is to do similarity check between your question vectors and the information vector databases. If it's just a similarity check, we all know how straightforward it could be, right? Use the cosine similarity, many other type of similarities, and return the top 5, top 10 most similar embedding vectors. Then later, return the best, the top 5 or 10 most similar text from your lecture notes, your PDF documents. But these are piecemeal. Means that you may have one sentence here, you may have the other sentence there. They're all relevant, right? It's human. Human probably is also readable, but it's not so fluent. Then what do? You get all those top 5, top 10 different answers. It depends, right? Yeah, maybe top 2, top 3 different answers. Fit that into a large language model. Ask the large language model help you to polish so that become human more readable. The last part is called generations. The top 2 or top 3 relevant answers derived based on the similarity. You fit that into large language model, which will go through our generation process to produce the output. And that is nothing but RAG. The example I give you to use is called MENA. I didn't have the chance to, didn't have the time actually to, change the name, right? I'm really taking from my main folders, right? I zip that, put it there. One of the application is this. I didn't use the lecture notes because it's too bulky, right? I just used Excel files, right? Based on Excel file, I simulated or underlined FASS data vector databases, and from there I do a queries. Okay, it's runnable. You guys can try. Questions so far? No, I didn't really talk about embeddings. Yeah, the example I put in the lecture notes. Latent space is nothing. It's just a slightly different dimension to represent the same thing in different ways. Yeah. For those of you, I think if your high school have studied so-called This is a Euclidean space, right? The same data points, you can display this as x1, x2, sorry, y1. You see this in the xy coordinates, Euclidean coordinates. But you can also display this as rho, let's say it's alpha, right? In the polar coordinates. The same thing. Same data point, viewed in different ways. It gives you different perspective. And similarly, I do not know whether in this class I mentioned about basically the time signals viewed in time domains and frequency domains. I did the same thing, right? So after you do a Fourier transforms in the time domains, you see that in the frequency domain. And from time domain, you're going to see something like this, right? Sinusoid. In frequency domain, you only see one pulse in two frequency. As simple as that. And when you do computations, I think it's much easier from the frequency domains, right? As compared to you see things in the time domain. Very similar. So the latent space is the same, right? But look at the words, you just very difficult to tell the relationship. But if they convert them into a different space through the embedding methods, then it's not too difficult to find their similarity. So the example here to see that Kim minus man means what? What does it mean? The only thing left over is the majesty, right? In local words, say atas, high class, right? Plus a woman, a female with majesties, queena, right? So this is like you are doing math on semantic meanings. How nice it is. But people will say, hey, then in what space we should move to? How was suppose that space can have this kind of features? You don't worry too much, right? And there are very smart people who have done this for all of us. They prove you work in this way. Generally, you just apply their libraries to do the embeddings. Of course, even though we learn, you can learn, right? But you begin with something simpler, like skip diagrams or what to vectors. That essentially will show you how do they train the embedding matrices. Okay, huh? But anyway, that's become, I think, again, it's the data science ready, right? Not data engineering. Vector indexing and distance matrices. I think this is nothing but I think the one we just discussed, right? Once we convert the things into vector space, how do we find the similarity? The cosine similarity, Euclidean distance, there are many other ways. Pearson correlation also can. Even the distance matrices, that there are more than one way. Euclidean distance is one way. Manhattan distance could be another way, right? Multiple different ways. Data for context. I think don't worry too much. Yeah, maybe I will not go into details anyway. This is not is a large language. When you guys, I think, basically chat with the chat GPTs, right? Do you know why? The GPT seems to always remember what have happened before. For example, right, after 10 iteration of the interactions, right? For example, I need you to help me to plan a dinner, right? I don't eat pork, right? After a few rounds, they say that, can you give me a pork burger? And the GPT will reply, just now you see you don't eat pork, so I don't recommend you continue. How come GPT remember? As of now, in the current moments, I only key in one text, can you give me a pork burger? If according, just now, the way we're talking about, right, how do we do the RAG? The query is, can you give me a pork burger? The query, the underlying databases. How can the ChatGPT engine know just now I tell him at the onset I don't eat pork? How could they know? How could that remember? That is because you feel the query language is, can you give me a pork burgers? Actually, in the back end, when the ChatGPT push back the information, They don't just push that line of prompts or questions. They lump all the questions you asked in the last 10 iterations, lump everything together. That will be your new queries. Then you go query the underlying database. That is the reasons. It's not remember. You are keep on reminding them. Iteration 1, iteration 2, 3, 4, 5, until 10, right? So we may think we're only asking this question and put it there in the large language model. But actually, in the back end, because the chat boxes, the dialog window is still there, right? All the text are there. In the back end, every time when you ask a question, they literally pass all the history and put into the database to do a check again. That's the reason how you remember. It's not remember. You are literally, the backend literally feeding everything into the query engines again. You will not forget. Okay? Data for control. Yeah, I think I briefly mentioned on this, right? Don't want to go into very, very, very detailed. And now it becomes a different framework, different concepts, right? I talk about very intuitive things for you to understand. Data for control is nothing but a guardrails. You guys know what is the guardrails? Because large language model is very smart. Large language model is less predictable. If I ask you to write a piece of the Python code, to read a CSV files, return me the top 10 rows, it's very easy. It's very deterministic. No matter who run the programs, no matter how many times you run the program, the answer and the result will be always the same. Deterministic, predictable. But for large language model, you ask the large language model to say that you return me the top 10 results. You do not know what it's thinking. In the back end, probably he write a piece of Python code, but in what way you don't know. It's like a black box with certain intelligence, right? Maybe they will return you the top 10 rows with the highest something. Or maybe without doing any sorting at all, they just return the top 10 rows they read in sequence. You don't know. You can't predict because you don't know what's inside the little brains. This is different from Python code, right? The brain is designed by you explicitly. Hence, due to those uncertainties, you need to put guardrails, especially for important work, right? You can't afford. So guardrails means the control. For example, the guardrail can say that when you return me the top 10 informations, you make sure that you take less than 1 minute. For example, because I think there are times the large language model, I think, due to various different reasons, right? They keep on retrying to read a file has been locked. If it doesn't work, you should return. You don't keep on running. You make sure that you do not return sensitive information, carry PII related info. PII stands for personal identifiable information, because I am not supposed to say it's sensitive. Guardrails are the control you want the applications, generative AI application, to orbit to, so that it will not become too flexible. There are certain embedded guardrails inside the GPT that you probably do not know. For example, when you ask a question, how do you make a nuclear bomb? I don't know whether they release that or not, right? They may use this, they may say now, sir, that's beyond my limitation, I'm not able to answer. Or if you take a picture of yourself to say that, am I the greatest looking guy, I think, in this world? It comments me how pretty you are. sometimes they will refuse to comment. It's all guardrails. It's not the large language model do not know. I am very sure when they be trained, they know they can give the answer. It's engineers behind them put the guardrail to say, if you encounter these situations, tell all political correct information. Do not comment. These are guardrails. Okay lah? I hope use a simple example to explain to you what is a guardrails. A guardrail is very important when you want to deploy generative AI, agentic AI application at the enterprise level. Because things happen so quickly. There may not be human in between to do a checking rules. Is it the right thing or the wrong things? Right? So you use the guardrails to control. Does guardrails always be effective? No, You are literally use the large language model, one large language model to supervise another large language model. You probably work most of the time, but it will be difficult for you to assume you will work all the time. And that's why, in very sensitive applications, humans need to be in the loop to make the final call. If the doctors use a large language model to consume all the diagnosis result of the patients and make, which eventually will give a recommendation of diagnosis as well as a prescription of the medicines. A doctor, in this case, need to read through and make the final endorsements, go or not go. Because it's too critical. If the large language model make wrong choices, it could be a life and death. And you can't kill the large language model, right? Assuming, right, if you make wrong choices. The best is switch off the engine, so what? Right? It doesn't scare. Okay, so that's the concept of the guardrail. 3 generations. I think that one I'll briefly cover. Conventional generation of data engineering or architectures. You from source, you do ETL, ELT, put them into data storage, and the last one is data consumptions, right? The 5-6 different steps are, yeah? Generative AI stack. From source, you also do ingestions. But in this case, the ingestions will be done into not a traditional database or data warehouse, into a vector DB. Then you link to large language model. Agentic AI stack is still evolving. It's still evolving. Two years ago, I think people used LangChain. To store the state and conditions. Now, right, something called LangGraph can perform more complicated agent-level orchestrations. So the whole thing is still evolving. So I can't say that's the only way. But anyway, yeah, this is based on the current so-called status, right? This is one of the popular ones. From source, what is this? Plus API plus tools. Yeah, you make the source available. You make the API call available. Tool actually can also be described. It depends, right? If it's a remote tool, you can also API, right? You put all these 3 things, make it available to agents. Let the agent decide how they consume the source. How did they use the API call to retrieve further information? How did they use the tool? People will say, hey, sir, what if the source is very raw? You don't worry too much. Agents very smart. They know how to deal with that. Right? In the past, who are the one doing to convert the raw source, transform them, clean them, put them in a proper place so it's easier for people to use? Us, Because the downstream people who consume this information, sometimes they're data analysts, sometimes they're business stakeholders. You can't expect them to do everything, right? So you prepare the things in a very nice way. Using a restaurant examples. In the past, all the patrons or the guests come into the restaurant, they're really just eaters. They come here to eat. You're the one who wash the dishes, chop in the vegetables, slice the meats, stir fry them, and prepare the dish, put them in them, right? Now, the eaters are still eaters, but the eaters are chefs themselves. They want to cook by themselves, right? You just prepare the raw ingredient, open the house kitchens, right? Any tools, appliances you want to use, you use. They come in, cook by themselves. After finish eating, they leave. Differences. That's also the reasons. Last 1 to 2 months' time, right? You see the stock markets, I think, have a big declines. Says the industries under the great heat. Why? If in the past you do these things, you still can sell, right? You do various different transformation, you bring your own logics, you build the insights, you sell. Now, where's the transformations? Not see that you don't need to do. There are times you need to do. It's just that this little thing have such a great capability. They can build those transformations. They have their own intelligence to do the transformation by themselves. Why should I buy this from you? The only thing I need to buy is tokens. The API calls. Why should I spend so much money to do this? That's why this company's stock price, I think, under a great hit, last 1 to 2 months' times. So talk about that. I think the CEO of NVIDIA, I think, also bring a very interesting ideas. The competitions, I think, of large language, the AI applications, is not really competitions, I think, on AI itself. I do not know whether, maybe I digress a little bit, then we wrap up this, then we'll go to review. It may look like we're competing on AI applications. But below that, we actually compete on large language models. It may look like I think we're competing on large language models. We actually compete on infrastructures, the data centers, the chips. It may look like we're competing on data center and chips. Yeah, we still do, right? But the underlying determinant factors. Here have 5 layers, right? We'll simplify a little bit. It's literally the energy. This essentially soon, in his words, which to a certain extent I agree as well, will be one of the key differentiators. These are the knowledge you can easily share, right? The researcher doesn't hide from each other, right? Unless it's a proprietary models, you can easily share. This, yes, the chips is a hardware, right? It's difficult to share, and it probably take time for you to ramp up. These are the one are the foundational build, foundational infrastructures, national grid. It takes very long time for you to prepare. And sometimes it's not just you want to prepare, you can prepare. For example, in Singapore, right? How do we prepare? You build the power plants. How many can you build? Do you have all the crude oils actually to power them up, LNGs? Do you have enough solar panels? Can you build a nuclear power plant? Do you do that, right? And even if you want, it takes ages for you to prepare on that. Does the markets, does the economy have the time to wait for you that long or not? Energy. So you go check, right? In this world, who are the big players are prepared in advance on this. Energy will not just impact AI. Energy will impact your transportation as well. Look at the crisis happens in Middle East as of now, right? Without the crude oils, your car can't even move. That's also the stuff I share with you, right? That's the first time I think every 2 days I want to go to petrol station to top up my petrols, because I noticed the price keep on going up, right? From $3.3 per liter go to 4. How many percent of increase? 20+%. Now, of course, now you come back a little bit. But if your car been powered by electricity, you're not going to be handicapped by this. Of course, if your electricity be produced by the crude oil, then the same thing, right? But there are more than one way to produce their electricity. Solars, hydros, your solar panels, right? Hydro is the water dams. Nuclear, coal, but coal is not very friendly, but it's still one of the sources, right? Anyway, not digress too much. Quickly wrap up this, then we'll talk about revisions. Let's skip this. I think it's not say it's not important, but I don't want to overload you guys. Agentic AI orchestrations. This is the interesting ones. I will not go through with you all different type of scenarios, but only with maybe React. Erase this. Agentic model, React, is one of the framework probably been introduced more than 1.5, maybe 2 years ago. Reason, then actions. You use the large language model to do a reasoning, which will lay out 2 to 3 different steps. That's the plan, that's the strategies, right? The action part will call various different tool and API to take step 1 actions, step 2 action, and step 3 actions. That is one of the way. One of the, what is the best way? One of the agent schema, not really called agent schema, right? But lack of better words to describe them, right? One of the agents models or mode of processing informations. There are a few, right? I think I put it in the notes. Let me go to that page. This is React. You got also plan, act, and observe. Treat this, I think, as your, for example, in the Python, right? If condition, action do something, then check. This is like a framework or train of thought, chain of thought, right? If certain thing happen, you do A. After doing A, then check. How do you check? You got large language model, right? The output from the first steps will be fed into large language model who will perform the second step. You got validate before action. But anyway, there are multiple different so-called patterns or framework, right? We can use. Yeah, I think the rest of details, I think I will try not to go into so much. Yeah. Anyway, this is more like so-called additional information, which I think it might be relevant for you guys in the longer term. So I'm trying to prepare you a little bit. I also don't claim I'm a deep expert in these areas. The whole thing works way too fast, right? It doesn't even have enough time to catch up with the latest developments. Yeah. For, let's say, for example, like 1 month ago, there's a new thing called Open Cloud. As of now, I don't have the time to deploy on my own laptops. So what did I do? I go online to buy one. Spend the money to buy one, deploy one on the cloud. Okay, questions on this? You will not be tested. This chapter will not be tested. Yes? No, Okay, let me take 30 seconds break, water break. Then we go a quick review to prepare you guys for the quiz. Okay, quiz will be next week, second half the lectures. Format will be similar, exemplified, so make sure that you bring your laptops, make sure it's working. MCQ, the MCQ type of MCQ means that it's one question with multiple answer, and the correct answer potentially will be more than one. In fact, a good portion of them have more than one answers. 50 questions, 70 minutes. Enough or not? For those of you think not enough, raise your hand. You're fighting for your own rights. Raise high, so that I can see. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, so many, more than half. Okay, for those who didn't raise your hands, you don't have extra time, huh? No. Okay, before we make a collective decision to see how much time we should have, let me share with you more information. 50 questions, MCQ, also true and false. You have 1/3 of them are true and false. And true and false literally is one sentence. Answer is true and false. It could be as fast as 5 seconds. You can make a decision. Do you still need more time? You still want to have more time? How much more time do you need? I put it 70 minutes as of now. Don't tell me 3 hours, cannot. How much more time? 70 minutes? Calling once? Calling twice? Dame. Cannot 100 minutes too much It's like 1 hour and 40 minutes. I almost can guess, average out, probably 50 minutes, most of you can finish. You have to stay there for another 50 minutes. Very boring. How about 75 minutes? 80? Oh, okay. For those of you who agree with 80, raise your hands. Only half the class. More. 80 So 1 hour, 20 minutes. I go back to change the setting. Okay? 50 questions. Yes. 50. Last time only 25, right? I double that. Because I noticed, I think the pace you finish the whole thing was so fast. Yeah. I also increased the percentage of the true and false question, right? So don't struggle. If you really don't know the answer, just randomly guess one. Don't later come back again, right? Maybe you choose the wrong good answers, then later on change the wrong answers. Yeah. Yeah. But I have to say, the MCQ, the dosage part, I was not see more difficult, but it will not be intuitive. For example, I will not ask you the questions. What are the major steps of a data engineering, right? That's so long you listen to you come to class, you will definitely know how the answers. I will probably give you a business scenarios and ask you to describe what are the major data engineering steps has been involved, right? A little bit thinking, but not that much, right? So there will not be free marks. I shouldn't say there will not be free marks giveaway, right? The question will be varying difficulties, right? It will be a good test, I think, on your understandings. Not to design to fail you, It will cover all the subject we discussed so far, except the today's large language model ones, right? You'll cover graph databases, you'll cover distributed systems, you'll cover streaming data processing as well. Yeah, you cover everything we discussed, the data schemas, ETL, Python programming, etc. Yeah. And the first part of the lectures, as I just mentioned as well, I think with great support, I think from Huawei Cloud, they sent, I think, their architects come to address us, right? He wanted to do it face-to-face, but unfortunately, he won a business trip, I think, in Hong Kong. He will address us remotely, right? If there's any question you guys want to prepare, feel free to prepare. One question I can think of that, what's the difference between Huawei Cloud and GCP and Azure, right? We are not so-called, not one of the biggest players in Singapore or in Asia yet. I'm not asking you to embarrass him, no, please don't, right? Yeah, they come here for free, didn't charge us. Feel free to ask any engaging question if you want. He's probably going to take about 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then we take a break. Then we go for the quiz. Yeah. And also, project submissions. None of you came to me to say, hey, sir, in what way I'm going to submit the projects? Means that you guys are still working on that, right? I will set a submission folder, I think, in Canvas. You make sure in the project reports, you mention very clearly who are your team members, what is the name and students' IDs. Get it very clearly there. I don't drop them. There was one time, I think, not in this class, right? There's one teammate, I don't know why all the other team member doesn't like him. Or maybe the guy didn't do anything, right? They dropped the guy in his submissions, right? Didn't put the names there. And that guy is so ignorant, right? Maybe he never come to project discussion. He didn't even know that. When I'm trying to finish grading the reports, I noticed, how come there's one student doesn't have the project scores? I trace back. Then that guy was being reported by teammates. The contribution is not enough. I say if the contribution is not enough, that you should engage him earlier. Not to drop him without his awareness, right? So you guys, it's not for me to advise what should you do, right? You make sure you have a proper submission with all the particulars and details. Yeah? And the date we put it there is when? When? Next week, right? 6th of April. So you got to submit that. That also means that only have 1 week to review. 6th of April, submit. The criteria of submission, I make it very clear as well. What do you need to submit, right? Reports, code, right? Then afterwards will be presentations. Presentation will be a Monday night. You make sure that you guys coordinate properly on the sequence. Sumita, you're going to help on that, right?
I was thinking of having a random draw, like you can decide just a random thing that you decide to do.
No, also can, right? Then you come to here, right? Let's do a fortune of the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Right? On the spot you determine.
No, not on the spot, but like next week.
Okay?
Week before.
To determine. Okay? Also can, All right. Oh, what's the time now? 9:42. We don't have too much time to do the revisions. You know what? Instead, I go to chapter by chapters. You guys ask me the questions. I'll help you to answer. Do you help you to prepare? Questions? All very confident, This time around, the quiz are not that straightforward. Yeah, even though it's MCQ, but not that straightforward. You need you to think. And especially in the areas of graph databases, distributed so-called data processing and streaming data processing. I know a lot of you never touched on this before, right? So I didn't purposely set a question difficult. For example, I never asked you what are the consensus algorithms. I don't know whether you guys still recall or not. Maybe not, right? Yeah, I know that, I think, so I focus more on concept. For example, if you start to see the for example look like this, going to be leak of the information already, right? I don't do for example, right? You guys have any questions? For example, where is the focus? If no one asks question, I will take it as a none. Okay? Then, yes? Yes. Yeah, all the previous chapters will be covered, but with some focus on the key subject. For example, distributed systems, streamings, graph databases. The data movements and data transformations obviously will be covered. Right, the OLTP, OLP obviously will be covered, right? These are the key things that I keep on mention. Any other questions? Yes, Wei. Last time not really open book. Yeah. Yes, I think you can refer to the materials on your laptops. It's just that you can't use large language models or internet. Of course, you're not allowed to use the electronic devices to communicate with each other as well. But you may not have the time now because you have 50 questions. You have how many minutes? 65, right? Is it 65? Don't worry. I'm not going to shortchange you. 80, I remember. It's recorded here as well, right? Yeah. That also means that you better spend some time to understand the concepts. You don't need to remember all the nitty-gritty details. I will never test you on that. It's more of the understandings. For example, I will not ask you what is the name of the vector databases, right? I will not ask you FAISS, right? There are a few others, but I will probably ask you, what is the value of vector databases? The understanding is more important than than the memories. After today, will be 2 more lectures ready. So my promise or the incentive are still the same. For quiz 2, if anybody get full marks, maybe full marks will be difficult. Last time nobody get full marks. Maybe 50, right? If any of you score 48 and above, right? If it's less than 4, I'll bring you for a proper meal. Same, Okay, I think if no further questions, I can yes. More detailed questions. Which areas?
For example, does the exam contain the questions like
How to write a cipher queries? No, you are not being tested how to write the cipher. Cipher is the language that you use to query Neo4j, right? You'll not be tested on that. Not that details. You more focus on high-level understandings, not the deep analytics details, because those are too new to you guys. You guys probably doesn't really have a chance to do a lot of hands-ons, right? Yeah, I only show you how does the Neo4j graph look like, how does the cipher queries help you to query the graph databases on node and edges. That's about it. So I shouldn't ask you too much details as well. Focus on understandings. I also will never ask you how to implement a centrality algorithm or page rank. But ideally, you need to know what is that, right? You guys know what is the shortest path, right? If you don't know the shortest path, then it's not your understanding, right? I'll never ask you to implement shortest path. Also, I will never ask you how many different ways to implement the shortest path. What is the time complexity, right? Why is shortest path? That's more linked towards computer science already. But you need to know on graph databases what is the shortest path about, what is useful, right? That's the basic things. I see in the lecture notes as well, right? Along that lines, not designed to fill you, but I think it's actually to make sure you have a minimum level of understandings. how to apply them. Python, the same thing, right? I will never ask you on the syntax, but if you got to know Python can be used to import into import Excel files. Python could be used to process data to do ETL pipes as well, right? That's the basic understanding you should have. The hands-on, I think I will count on you guys on the actual project itself, which you need to submit the reports as well as the code. Yeah, I think it's no further questions. I can probably release you guys now. You guys have a proper rest. Next week, when we see each other, you're going to be quiz ready. Okay?